Welcome Paris, France, from Washington, D.C., USA. This short presentation will demonstrate the concept beneath our new Freedom Walk, a multi-lane, motorized walkway that lowers income equality and is simultaneously environmentally friendly, people-friendly, city-friendly, and is stimulative to economic growth. Here we have a typical small French city with a typical sidewalk connected to a street. We have motorized the first lane of. Our model, named Caroline, will appear and step off the sidewalk shortly onto the first lane, which is traveling at 2.5 miles per hour, or a little slower than Caroline would normally walk. Once on the walk, after establishing her balance, Caroline will step off onto the second lane, which hasn't appeared yet but is about to. This is possible because even though her speed versus the ground would be 5 miles an hour in the second lane, the relative change in her speed as she undertakes the move from lane 1 to lane 2 is again only 2.5 miles per hour, a change human brains are calibrated to handle easily already. In other words, our freedom walk is really a relative speed walk, or a gift from Einstein. There's Caroline making her way down the first time, and you see her stepping onto the second walk. So she's on the first walk, establishes her balance, then she's on the second walk, and by the time she's on that second walk, she's traveling 5 miles an hour, even if she wasn't walking herself. As you can see, the arrows flashing tell you the speeds of the lanes. Now we expand the lane count to 5, or even 10 lanes, which would be for major cities like Paris. And so here we have the 5, and you can see that with 5 lanes and those speed markers, we're already getting Caroline's speed up, and now we're looking at it, what it would look like in a major city, a major walkway, 10 lanes across, where the top speed of the walkway itself is in the 30s, and somebody walking, therefore, would have even 3.5 mile an hour faster than that. We have a major thoroughfare flowing through the city with a sea of walkers all traveling between 10 and 30 miles an hour without stopping. Now we see how it's done. We've added the block. That actual block is resting on a maglev rail bed, which is sitting on top of our elevated platform. So here we have the entire picture from the end. And you can see the blocks would be approximately 2 feet wide and 1 foot deep. Now we add the first building in our streetscape, and it's a 10-story building, and we've duplicated it here on the right and put the streetscape down in between with 3 lanes of traffic flowing north in this example and 3 flowing south. Now we've added the Freedom Walk infrastructure in on top of the streetscape in between the 2 buildings, and we get to see the entire thing at scale. And at this size, we can see that on the bottom level, we've preserved large enough area for a truck to pass through in either direction, and we've preserved enough space in the work area beneath the walkway for our workers who maintain the maglev system. And then finally, on the top level, we have the actual walkway with 10 lanes, in this example, approximately 30 inches each lane. And on the inside rail there, we show the detail that we have the speed rail. That's the rail that goes as fast as the walkway does on the inside lane so that the person cannot hurt themselves. And there we see our 9 feet clear for the workers and our 15 feet clear below for the cars. And above, we see the detail on our beautiful skyway. This is the enclosure which comes out over the walkway and allows us to condition the environment inside there, which we do also through that center pillar where the speed rail is, where we blow air out on the people going in the direction they're going, so their relative wind resistance is much lower. And although they're moving at 30 miles an hour, to them it appears as if they're just walking along at 10. This combination of events makes this thing extremely human friendly. In other words, walking is the healthiest form of exercise. If we did it all day instead of only a few minutes, we would be much healthier. Furthermore, this is cheaper, and that makes it not only human friendly but city friendly. In other words, because it's so efficient, the city can make money on it while also charging people less to travel on it. And this, of course, uh, leads to ever lower infrastructure costs and ultimately gives the cities an advantage over their suburban neighbors, which they haven't had in a long time. Finally, it's earth friendly. And this, of course, is because it doesn't emit any CO2 or other effluents. And secondly, because it doesn't use any of the Earth's resources to make all the transportation vehicles, which aren't necessary anymore. And finally, because cars themselves burn fuel as a combination of rolling resistance and wind resistance, as do trains and all vehicles. And this thing eliminates both. In other words, rolling resistance of a maglev is literally 1/1000th that of a tire or even a steel wheel on a steel rail. And wind resistance is also largely eliminated since the blocks follow each other down the walkway and don't encounter any front wind resistance. Here we're back at our beautiful enclosed walkway, which a sea of people move up and down on all day long through the city, making the city the friendliest, most beautiful, and environmentally friendly city on the planet. Now we get into the specifics of how it can be done. There will be elevators all along the route which take people from the ground level up to the new walking level. And from the side, we will bring in walks that connect to the main walk. They won't have 10 lanes like this one. They'll be regular type of moving sidewalks that are much lower tech, and but they're feeders. They go at a much slower speed and bring people in. And what they would do is reduce the distance that people would have to walk in order to get to the main walk, therefore expanding the area that you don't need cars for. And here we have a map of New York City, which is where we have the first walk completely planned for. And you can sort of get the idea here. The dark lines represent the main thoroughfare. So as you can see, on both sides of Central Park, we have long, continuous walks, and then coming off of the sides of those the lines which are the thinner represent the smaller regional walks, and those smaller feeder walks also would have elevators on them. So we would bring people up to the level gradually before they get to the big walk,